Hello everyone, thank you for joining us today and welcome to our webinar, What's New in ENVI 5.5.1, SARscape 5.5, and IDL 8.7.1. My name is Zach Norman and I will be moderating this webinar. I'm excited to be joined today by Bill Okubo, our product manager for ENVI and IDL at Harris, who will be introducing some of the new features and functionality along with myself. Just a couple of housekeeping items before we get started. They've muted the phone lines for all attendees, so if you have any questions at any point during the webinar, feel free to enter them into the questions chat box, and we'll try to answer as many as we can at the end of the presentation. We are recording this webinar, and we'll have it up on our site at www.harrisgeospatial.com in the next couple of days. We'll also email you a link to the recordings as well as the slide deck that you're welcome to share with your colleagues. And now to go ahead and get started. So here's our speakers for today. I'm Zach Norman down in the bottom right. I'm a solutions engineer, so I'm on kind of the technical side of sales. I use all of our products just about every day. And I'm excited to be joined by Bill Okubo, our product manager, and I'll let him introduce himself and get us started.
Yeah, thanks, Zach. Hi, I'm Bill Okubo, and I'm a product manager. I've been with Harris for 15 plus years, so I have an extensive background in our software technologies, and I think this will be a good presentation for you guys today. So on the agenda here, we have a little quick intro. I'll just introduce our product and service offering, and then we'll look at the features of ENVI IDL. And then, especially with ENVI, we have done a lot of work around ArcGIS integration. And then Zach is going to go ahead and do some demos for us. In ENVI, there is the ENVI Modeler, and then there's some integration there, again, with ArcGIS, and then also integration with our GSF software that he'll talk a little bit more about for the cloud. And then we'll leave some time at the end for questions. So this is a quick look at our portfolio at Harris Geospatial. IDL and ENVI are flagship software products. IDL is general data visualization software, and ENVI is a desktop remote sensing software, which is now available on the cloud as well. SARscape is one of our most significant modules to ENVI, and that's because we're really seeing a lot of interest in SAR processing. So ENVI addresses optical imagery. So with SARscape, you have the ability to work with SAR data as well. And then we have Geospatial Services Framework, GSF, and Jaguar. Those are two of our cloud and enterprise computing capabilities. We also offer MapMart, and that's a marketplace really for data that we sell through Harris. And you have the capability to buy all sorts of optical imagery and use that with our tools like ENVI. And then the last two are really all about some of our services. For deep learning at Harris over the last several years, we've done a lot of projects around deep learning, machine learning, so we've developed a lot of expertise in geospatial deep learning technologies. And then we offer a broad range of training and consulting services, both for those specialized deep learning capabilities as well as generalized IDL and ENVI computing. So a big piece of every release, especially with ENVI, is new sensor support. So we want to start out with what have we added with some new file support in ENVI 5.5.1. Just a quick side note that 5.5.1 really refers to the point release, and typically in our releases, this release has a lot of new features. We would typically number this at say like a 5.6 level, but we kept it at 5.5.1 so that you avoid having to need a new license entitlement. So if you've been running ENVI 5.5, when you download this new release or the IDL 8.7 release, when you download the new release, you won't need a new license entitlement. It'll just work after you've downloaded and installed it. So here's a quick snapshot of the new file formats in this release of ENVI. And it's a couple of different formats for non-US type organizations. The LSAT-1B is an Algerian satellite, and then the Formosat 5 is a Taiwanese satellite. And then in addition to that, we have support for the PlanetScope reflectance data. So if that's something you need in your work, that's new in ENVI as well. Another one that's important for us, particularly in the US military and some of our partners outside of the US as well, is this My for NITIF format. And it's really a time-based image file format that's based upon the NITIF standard. And really what NITIF is all about is imagery and multiple image segments that include a lot of rich metadata. So there's a lot of informational content around the imagery that's included with it. And you can see in this example here, it's a time-based series of frames that are animating with a controlling type of little control panel dialog there. I'll turn it over to Zach here. Hey, Zach, I think you might be still on mute.
Thanks, Bill. Sorry about that. So I'm going to be introducing some of the new visualization and analysis tools that have been added into ENVI for this release. The first one that we're going to start with is the new topographic shading tool. So basically this lets you take an elevation source, so you got a DEM or a DSM, and add a color ramp for the elevation and add sun angle for azimuth and elevation. And basically this lets you go through and on the fly, which we'll hang out on this slide for a second, which will walk you through kind of what the tool does. Lets you on the fly adjust color tables, the angle and location of the sun, and dynamically shows you the topographic shading image that you're creating. With this, you can use different color spaces, so not just red, green, blue. You can go into HLS or HSV, which can help accentuate different features. So I'm just gonna hang out here for a second. You can see in this little video, you can adjust the stretching for the DEM itself. You can go through, change different color tables, and it all updates pretty much immediately. So it's a cool, nice little visualization tool. So in addition to this, another tool that's a little bit of visualization and also programmatic, a new ENVITask that's been added. You can easily access vector information from OpenStreetMaps. So what this little animation on the right is doing, and we'll play this a couple times just to walk through it, is it's using an ENVITask to go through and, based off of an image's extent, query the available vector sources that are present for that scene. Specifically, this is grabbing water. So it's grabbing the location of water, and it's masking out water in the scene from our analysis. So this might be something that you could potentially be interested in, especially if you're near a coast. Maybe you're going to be using QAC from the atmospheric correction module. You'll need to mask out water if there's a significant amount. Over here on the left, you'll just see a little screenshot with all the vectors in the area overlaying on the image. So this is a nice tool for visually inspecting the vectors, but also programmatically accessing information as well. And in addition to this, there's a new routine for creating contour lines in ENVI. And what you'll actually see over on the right is this is going to be running through the old tool for creating color or contour lines. And the one thing you'll see is that it's slow. It takes a very long time. And so it's been added as a new visualization or annotation layer that will show you the color line or contour lines almost instantly for the part of your DEM or DSM that you're actually looking at. And so what you see in the top left is a screenshot of contour lines over the result from the topographic shading tool. So I'm not going to sit here and wait for this video to run because it does take a little bit. You can see the progress is very slow, but once you go through and just add the annotation, you see the contour lines pretty much instantly. And at this point, I'll turn it back over to Bill for a few slides.
All right, so I want to talk a little bit about our SAR data workflow, and really this talks to capabilities that will be in SARscape 5.5, okay, and that's coming soon here in October. And there's some significant new capabilities here. So one of them is that, like ENVI, where we have the ENVITasks, SARscape now will have that incorporated into this release. So the tasks are really a more modern way, more modern form of an API in ENVI, and now that's available in SARscape. And it really amounts to some capabilities that allow you to chain together processing steps into complete workflows. And once you do that, it can be leveraged, or in order to do that, it can be leveraged through ENVI Modeler. That's a way to visually program those workflow steps using the tasks. Another part of this release that's significant, particularly for our partner military organizations in Europe, is this Sensor Independent Complex Data Format, SICD is how it's known, which is a SAR data format that'll be newly supported in this release. And in conjunction with US military, there will be a fair amount of interest for that, I believe. I want to talk for a minute down below there. There's some other module releases that I just want to note as well. From the same partner vendor, SARmap, we have OpticalScape. They develop SARscape as well. And OpticalScape 5.4.2 is really now available, and it has some additional new features. And really what that's all about is it combines optical processing with SAR processing as well. And you can even fuse those data types. And it's available for both UAV, drone type data, as well as spaceborne data. And then we have ENVI Crop Science, which is an agricultural processing software as a module to ENVI. There's some new fixes and improvements in that release that we expect here in the month of October as well. In the graphic there, you can just see in the yellow the workflow steps for a SAR processing workflow that's been developed in ENVI Modeler. So there have been some updates to ENVI Modeler, and just so everybody's clear, in ENVI 5.5, that was a new feature that we came out with, which, as I said, helps you visually program workflows. So in every release, when we have a new feature, we have follow-on releases where we increase functionality. We take feedback from customers as to what could be enhanced. And in this particular release, the big thing that's available in Modeler is the ability to categorize different types of tasks to make it a little bit more usable for your workflow. And then in every release, we do try to provide some supporting information. There's a number of new ENVI tutorial type pieces that are available. Some integration with ArcGIS Pro is covered. In this particular case here, this image that you can see there is an example using Sentinel-3 marine data in the Persian Gulf area, and really it's showing algae bloom populations there. So all kinds of good new tutorial information to help you get started and keep using the ENVI tools.
Thanks, Bill.
Back to Zach. Yep.
I'm going to take over, and we're going to talk about some of the new IDL features that have been added to this release, and then we're going to quickly cover the ArcGIS integration, and then we'll have our demo. So with this release, there's two major features that have been added to IDL. The first one is that now you can access machine learning capabilities and tools directly through IDL. Previously, you know, IDL's kind of history has been a lot of supporting ENVI development and image processing routines. And with this release, some of those different algorithms for classification have been pulled out and separated so that you can now run them directly from IDL. Here's just kind of a list of some of the different features that have been added for this. You can check out our documentation for more information and examples that you can start with. So the one over on the right is showing creating a support vector machine or SVM classifier directly in IDL. In addition to this, we've worked on kind of modernizing IDL and making it a little easier to work with our open source world that we live in with software development. There's been a new feature added called the IDL Package Manager, which makes it easy to pull in codes from remote sources and immediately start using that in your IDL session. So over on the right, there's some little examples of what the syntax looks like. Basically, if you have a repository up on GitHub or have a zip file hosted on some server somewhere, you can pull that down. It will unpack that. You can use it. You can send somebody that line of code. So instead of them having to go to GitHub, pull down the library, download a zip, or clone it, you can just do that with a single line of code. Makes it easy to share and create libraries for other people. In addition to this, just want to talk about the IDL Python bridge as well. That's been updated for the latest Python 3.6 version, so that's 3.6.6. And I believe we're going to be starting working on Python 3.7 as well, because that just came out, especially if you're using Anaconda. The latest release of Anaconda is using Python 3.7 instead of 3.6. And we'll talk about ENVI in just a second with some of our ArcGIS integration, which is the next topic that we're going to be taking a look at. So with this, if you're not familiar, Harris has been a business partner with Esri for a long time. We're really the go-to source for advanced image analytics for ArcGIS users. We've always had some level of software integration with them, whether that's ArcMap. And if you're unfamiliar with ArcPro or haven't heard about it before, our integration with ArcPro is based on a Python package called ENVI. ENVI enables you to run ENVITasks or models that you've created programmatically without needing to have ENVI up and running. And so since ArcGIS uses Python behind the scenes for their toolboxes, that's how we can integrate directly with the interface. And so, this is really nice because with the ENVITask API and the ENVI Modeler, it means that you can create workflows and send them directly to ArcGIS to use them. So then it's kind of make one workflow. You can use it on desktop in ArcGIS or on enterprise. And so with this, I'm going to go ahead and jump into our demo. And we'll come back to the slides here in a few minutes. What I'm going to be showing today, and let me zoom in here a little bit. So I'm going to be walking through a workflow where we're going to use some hyperspectral data to go through and classify the location of solar panels in a scene. So we're going to be using, we're going to derive a spectral library from this scene based on these solar panels that are located in it. So here's a little example. So these are some homes. I believe this is in California somewhere. So kind of where my mouse is, you can see there's some solar panels. Also down here, there's some solar panels as well. And so I'm going to go ahead and open up the ENVI Modeler and show you what this workflow looks like. So for this example, we're using a predefined region of interest that isolates the pixels that we're interested in. This could be replaced with a shapefile or a spectral library for the spectra that you want to map against. Then we're going to use ENVI's spectral angle mapper classification. We're going to use classification sieving for cleanup. And then over on the right, we're going to update our raster metadata and convert our classification image to a shapefile for display. So you'll notice that there's these two pink boxes here. So there's output parameters and input parameters. What this does is when I hit run in the modeler, it will actually create a dialog for me. So the modeler is great because you can programmatically create workflows, but it also creates a user interface, so you don't need to hard code essentially the paths to files on disk. It's all dynamic. So for this, I'm going to use a principal components image that I previously generated. And once I hit OK, this is going to go through the different steps of the workflow. It'll add the results to my view and data manager. So if I close the modeler and I come back, if I toggle my shapefile on and off, you'll see the location of solar panels over here in this region. So it's very easy to go ahead and create a workflow, and this is something that you could then share with somebody else to use as well. So if I jump back over to the modeler, there's a little code tab up in the top left. Here I can generate an IDL program. So if you want to get into IDL programming, you can use the modeler to get you started. You can also generate a meta task, and basically what all that is it's an ENVI task that runs everything you see in the modeler. So nothing fancy there. If you click on generate meta task, you'll see it'll pop up another dialog with a JSON, which is JavaScript object notation description of everything that you've created in your model. At this point, there's this little button called Publish Task. If I click on Publish Task, it'll let me update some of the different properties of the task itself. And then I can publish these tasks to ArcMap or ArcPro, provided you have permissions to write to the folders where these files need to go. So I've already ran this ahead of time, so I'm not going to run it again. Instead, I'm going to switch over to ArcPro, and we've got the exact same setup. So I've got the same image loaded in the ArcGIS Pro interface, and over in the right, where my toolboxes are, you'll see there's an ENVI Management Tools toolbox. When you go through and you install ENVI Pi, this is a toolbox that'll be added. From this, the first thing you need to do is just configure your ENVI environment. All that you say there is where ENVI is located, so it knows what executable it needs to run. And here there's a hyperspectral toolbox, and this is the one that I created already with our solar panel finder. So if I double click on this file, I've already got, or my item in the toolbox, I already have the input raster pre-populated, so it's a little bit easier to run. And then if I just click run, and we just wait a few seconds, this is going to kick off the exact same processing chain, and then it will display our image in the view once it has finished. You'll see it finished, it's done. You can see these little kind of red spots across our scene. If we zoom in, you'll see it'll look just about the same as what we had over in ENVI. Now, one of the big advantages of the ENVI modeler is that it makes that task definition for you. With that task definition, I can run that on desktop or on enterprise. So next, what I'm going to show you is actually running the same workflow in a enterprise environment via a web front end. So what I've got up here, this is what we call the GSF dashboard. This is a kind of example web application that we built for demonstration or for customers that are interested in GSF. And it's just kind of a web interface allowing you to run any task that you have installed on your GSF server. So with this, I can go through, I can visualize my input data. So if I click Map Preview, this will load the image in pretty quickly. This is using some technology we've been developing to stream the pixels to my browser. So as I zoom in, everything will update, little tiles will come in, and this is working with the hyperspectral data directly on disk to load that in. More importantly here, is we can run just about any task that's located on, or that's a part of ENVI or IDL. In this case, I've got the solar panel finder added to the server. So I'm going to go ahead and run this one. I just need to select my input data and then hit go. From this list, you can see that I've ran this a couple of times already. And just like with ArcPro, this will take just a few seconds to finish. And once this does, we can go through and we can display either the vector or the raster. I'm going to add both to our map here, which will also pop up in just a second. And once it does, you'll see the output vector comes through first. I can toggle this on and off. You'll see little blue outlines around the red pixels there. And if I zoom in and toggle on or off my output raster, you will also see the classification results. And so that was all I had for the demo. I really just wanted to walk through how you could use the ENVI Modeler to create a workflow, run that in ArcPro via our integration, and then also run the same tools on GSF without needing to do anything special or custom. And so with that, that's all the content that we were going to present today. So just want to say thanks, Bill, for joining us and helping out with the presentation. At this point, we'll address any of the questions that have come in. As a reminder, you can use the questions chat box in the GoToWebinar dashboard if you are curious about anything. So I've got one for you, Bill. When will the release be available?
Yeah, that's a good question. The release of ENVI and IDL is already available. It's available on the Harris Download and License Center, and that can be accessed off of our website, harrisgeospatial.com.
Great. And here's one for me. Can GSF run any tool in ENVI? Yes, provided that tool is an ENVI task. GSF is based on the ENVI task and IDL task framework. So you can run just about any ENVI task. Some of them don't make sense to run by themselves. So that's where the ENVI Modeler can be used. For example, the image registration workflow. With GSF, it makes more sense to run the whole, generate your type points, filter the type points, register images together, than just run a single step at a time. And here's another question for you, Bill. Is the ENVI Modeler a module or added extension?
Yeah, ENVI Modeler is included with ENVI, so you don't have to buy an additional optional module. It's included with the base ENVI capability.
All right, got some other ones coming in here. This one is for me. Are there some detailed examples for the machine learning framework? Yes, if you go onto our documentation center, I think if you just Google machine learning space IDL, it should be the first or second link that pops up. And here's another one for me. Can you publish ENVITasks on ArcGIS server rather than GSF? So if you want to run our tools on ArcGIS server, you actually need to use the Geospatial Services Framework, or GSF, as well. And you can publish the task or workflow as a GP tool so that you can run it there. Let's see here. Another question for me is, can I run my existing IDL code on GSF? If you wrap your IDL code as IDL tasks, then you can run it on GSF. And looks like that's just about it. So kind of with that, we'll call it a day. We appreciate everyone's attention, and thank you, Bill, for joining us today. If we didn't get to your question, then someone will follow up with you. Just as a reminder, a recording of this webinar will be made available, and the slides will be emailed to you in the next couple of days. You'll be able to view the webinar on www.harrisgeospatial.com. Thanks, everyone, and have a great rest of your day.